First contact and intimidation. The skies darkened over Chicago at precisely 10:17 a.m. on a Tuesday in October, not from clouds, not from an eclipse, but from something far more ominous. A massive shadow crept across the downtown skyline, turning morning into night as pedestrians stopped in their tracks and looked up. Traffic halted. Cell phones emerged to record what loomed above. It was a ship, a vessel so enormous it eclipsed the sun itself, stretching for miles of dark, gleaming metal against the blue autumn sky. The behemoth hovered silently, defying known physics with its impossible mass suspended in air. Within minutes, reports flooded in from around the globe. New York, London, Beijing, Sydney, Moscow. Identical ships materialized simultaneously over 37 major cities worldwide. Humanity's first contact had arrived without warning, without invitation, and with overwhelming presence. At the Pentagon's Strategic Command Center, General Maya Patel stared at the wall of monitors, each showing live feeds from different cities around the world. "Estimate on their technological capabilities?" she asked, her voice steady despite the weight of the moment. "Off the charts, General," replied Major Jackson. "Our sensors can't even identify their propulsion system. Whatever's keeping those things aloft, it's nothing in our scientific playbook." The room buzzed with controlled chaos as military personnel rushed between stations. Phones rang endlessly. Orders were passed in hushed, urgent tones. The president would be calling any minute. "Ma'am, they're broadcasting," announced a communications officer. "All frequencies, all languages, simultaneously." The main screen flickered, and a face appeared. Not human, yet disturbingly humanoid. The being had iridescent blue skin stretched over an elongated skull. 4 amber eyes blinked in unsettling asynchrony. It wore an elaborate uniform adorned with what appeared to be badges of rank or honor. "People of Earth," it spoke in perfect, unaccented English. "I am High Commander Vorax of the Dracum Empire. Your world is now under our authority. Your species has been observed and deemed worthy of assimilation into our domain. Resistance would be regrettable and futile. Your weapons cannot harm us. Your technology is primitive. You have 3 Earth days to surrender control of your governments and military assets to our appointed representatives. Failure to comply will result in a demonstration of power that will leave no doubt of our superiority." The message repeated in every language on Earth, triggering global panic. Financial markets crashed within hours. Religious leaders called for prayer. Military forces worldwide went to highest alert. The United Nations convened an emergency session. But in a modest office at the University of Chicago's Department of Linguistics, Dr. Elena Reyes watched the message for the 20th time with growing perplexity rather than fear. As the world's foremost expert in theoretical xenolinguistics, she'd spent her career preparing for a moment she never truly expected to arrive. "This doesn't make sense," she muttered, making notes as she replayed the message frame by frame. The alien's mouth movements didn't synchronize with the words. The grammar was too perfect, too human. The cultural references embedded in the phrasing suggested knowledge impossible without deep immersion in human society. And why would aliens use human military terminology like High Commander? Elena's phone rang, displaying a government number. "Dr. Reyes," said a stern voice. "This is General Patel. Your expertise is required in Washington. A helicopter will arrive at your location in 20 minutes. 6 hours later, Elena sat in a secure conference room deep beneath the Pentagon with senior military and intelligence officials. They debated strategies of surrender and resistance while she sat quietly, reviewing her notes. "Excuse me," she finally interrupted, raising her hand. When no one noticed, she stood up. "Excuse me." The room fell silent, all eyes turning to her. "I believe we're missing critical information," Elena said, her voice gaining confidence. "The Draken message contains 17 distinct linguistic anomalies that suggest deception. Their technology appears advanced, but their understanding of human language contains contradictions that no truly advanced species should make. Doctor, We're facing extinction, General Patel replied tersely. This isn't the time for academic observations. You don't understand, Alina insisted. Either these aliens are biologically and culturally similar to humans in ways that defy evolutionary logic, or something very strange is happening. Their threats contain logical inconsistencies. Their technology descriptions contradict established universal physical constants. The room grew quiet as her words sank in. What exactly are you suggesting? Asked the Secretary of Defense. I'm suggesting, Alina said carefully, that we may not be dealing with the unstoppable force they claim to be. I need to analyze more of their communications. We're facing potential annihilation, and you want to study their grammar. General Patel's voice dripped with skepticism. Yes, Alina responded firmly. Because I think the Dracon Empire might not understand us as well as they believe they do. And if I'm right, that gives us an advantage. A young intelligence analyst named David Chen spoke up from the end of the table. She might be onto something. The Dracon ships haven't actually fired on us despite having clear tactical advantage. They're just hovering. The president, who had been listening silently via secure video link, finally spoke. You have 12 hours, Dr. Reyes. Find me something concrete, or we consider our limited options. Alina nodded, already mentally cataloging the patterns she'd identified. The so-called Dracon Empire had made their first mistake. They had underestimated human skepticism. She didn't sleep. Working with a hastily assembled team of linguists, physicists, and cryptographers, Alina spent the night analyzing every second of Dracon communications. By morning, they had filled digital archives with observations and theories. They're inviting us aboard their ship, General Patel announced when she called Alina to the command center. We're sending a diplomatic delegation. You're going. 6 hours later, Alina stood with 3 others in a military hangar. Captain Marcus Rivera, the military's top tactical advisor, checked his watch repeatedly. Dr. Simon Wong, a Nobel Prize-winning physicist, fidgeted with his glasses. David Chen from intelligence maintained a carefully neutral expression. Remember, Captain Rivera said quietly, we're just gathering information. Don't agree to anything. The Dracon shuttle arrived, a sleek silver craft that descended without sound. Its design was elegant but strangely familiar, reminiscent of human aerospace concepts rather than truly alien thinking. The door opened to reveal Dracon soldiers, tall humanoids with blue skin and 4 arms. They gestured silently for the humans to board. As the shuttle ascended toward the massive mothership, Dr. Wong leaned toward Alina. Their propulsion system shouldn't work, he whispered. The configuration violates conservation of energy principles. Yet here we are. The mothership's docking bay was cavernous, filled with various craft and hundreds of Dracon personnel moving with military precision. The humans were escorted through gleaming corridors to a large meeting chamber where High Commander Vorax waited. Welcome, Earth representatives, Vorax said, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence. You are here to discuss terms of surrender. We're here to learn more about the Dracon Empire, Captain Rivera replied evenly. Vorax's mouth stretched into something resembling a smile. Then learn. He pressed a control, and the wall transformed into a vast screen showing planets being engulfed in energy waves, destroyed in spectacular fashion. This is the fate of those who resist the Empire. Alina watched carefully. The destruction didn't follow physics as she understood it. The explosions propagated in ways that defied natural laws. She glanced at Dr. Wong, who gave an almost imperceptible nod. He'd noticed too. Impressive, David said smoothly. May we see your weapon systems to better understand what we face. Vorax seemed pleased by their apparent fear. Follow me. They were led through more corridors filled with technology that appeared advanced yet strangely familiar to human design principles. Dr. Wong kept falling behind, studying everything until Dracon guards urged him forward. This is our primary planetary pacification system, Vorax announced, indicating a massive cannon-like apparatus in a central chamber. It can render your world uninhabitable with a single discharge. Dr. Wong circled the weapon, his scientific curiosity evident. What energy source powers such a device? He asked innocently. Vorax launched into an explanation involving quantum resonance cascades and dimensional flux acceleration. The terms sounded impressive but made Wong raise his eyebrows slightly. The explanation was scientifically nonsensical. After the tour, they returned to the meeting room. "You have 2 Earth days remaining to surrender," Vorax reminded them, "or we will demonstrate our power on one of your cities." Back on Earth, the team gathered in a secure room deep beneath the Pentagon. Their technology is largely theatrical, Dr. Wong declared immediately. That planetary pacification system couldn't possibly function as described. The power requirements would make the ship itself implode. Their soldiers carried weapons that violate basic thermodynamics, David added. And did you notice none of them were actually armed in the private areas? Their military formations make no tactical sense, Captain Rivera noted. No real strategic deployment or security protocols. Elena spread out her notes. Their language patterns suggest they don't fully understand their own technology. They use technical terms incorrectly, almost as if reciting from a script they don't comprehend. General Patel frowned. So what are we saying? That the supposedly most powerful empire in the galaxy is bluffing? Not entirely, Elena cautioned. Their ships are real. They're here. But I think they've conquered other worlds through intimidation, not actual combat. Their weapons might be formidable, but nowhere near what they claim. "We need proof before making any decisions," the president said from the video screen. "If we're wrong, the consequences are unthinkable." "Then let's test them," Captain Rivera suggested. "Something small. See how they react." "We'll need to be careful," David warned. "If they realize we're questioning their power, they might escalate." "We have less than 2 days," General Patel reminded them. "What do you propose?" Elena smiled for the first time since the ships appeared. "I think I know where to start. Their communication system has exploitable weaknesses. If we approach this correctly, we might expose more of their bluff." The team exchanged glances. For the first time since the dark ships appeared, a spark of hope emerged. The mighty Dracon Empire might not be so mighty after all. Humanity's counterstrike. It's working. Elena exclaimed as her fingers flew across a specialized keyboard. On the screen before her, Dracon communications flickered and changed. 20 hours had passed since their return from the mothership. Elena had worked without rest, developing algorithms to interfere with Dracon transmissions. Dr. Wong joined her effort, adding physical equations that made the Dracon technology descriptions contradictory within their own parameters. "Their translation systems can't handle our modifications," Elena explained to General Patel. "When we introduce these specific linguistic patterns, their systems attempt to correct them and instead generate nonsensical outputs." In another room, Dr. Wong collaborated with military engineers to develop countermeasures against Dracon weapons. If their quantum resonance worked as claimed, the energy would destroy their own ships, he explained. "They must be using something much simpler, something with actual limitations we can exploit." Captain Rivera analyzed reports from around the world. Dracon ships remained in position, but had taken no further action since the delegation's meeting. "They're waiting for us to surrender out of fear," he observed. "That seems to be their standard protocol." David Chen entered with new intelligence. "I've accessed portions of their databases using the communication vulnerabilities Dr. Reyes identified. It's remarkable. They've allegedly conquered hundreds of planets without firing a single shot. Most species surrender after the first demonstration." "What demonstration?" General Patel asked. "They select an uninhabited area and trigger what appears to be massive destruction," David explained. "But according to their own technical specifications, it's mostly visual effects combined with conventional explosives. Very impressive theatrics, but not the planet-destroying capability they claim." The team presented their findings to world leaders in an emergency session. "We believe the Dracon Empire uses fear as their primary weapon," Captain Rivera explained. "Their technology is advanced but not beyond our comprehension, and certainly not as apocalyptic as they want us to believe." "What do you propose?" the president asked. "Direct confrontation would still be dangerous," Dr. Wong cautioned. "They do possess formidable weapons, even if they're not what they claim." "I suggest psychological warfare," Rivera said. "We use their own tactics against them. We show them humans aren't easily intimidated." "At least not for long," Elena added with a slight smile. After hours of debate, world leaders reluctantly authorized what they called Operation Mirage. First, they modified Earth's communications. When the Dracons demanded updates on surrender plans, Earth sent back messages with subtle errors in the Dracons' own language patterns. This confused the aliens, who weren't accustomed to species analyzing their communications so quickly. Next, Dr. Wong created devices that interfered with Dracon sensors, making their readings unreliable. When Dracon ships attempted to scan Earth defenses, they received contradictory results that changed each time. Elena found ways to broadcast modified Dracon messages back to them. Messages containing mathematical and logical errors that any truly advanced civilization should immediately recognize. "We're not attacking them," Captain Rivera explained to military leaders. "We're confusing them, making them doubt their own intelligence about us." "Either they'll realize their intimidation isn't working," David said, "or they'll be forced to actually demonstrate their power." "And if they do?" General Patel asked. "Then we'll know exactly what we're dealing with," Dr. Wong replied. "Their actual capabilities, not their claims." The deadline for Earth's surrender passed. The Dracon ships remained in position, but no attack came. Instead, High Commander Vorax demanded another meeting. "They're off script," Elena observed with satisfaction. "They don't know how to proceed when intimidation fails." For the first time since the ships appeared, cautious laughter echoed through the command center. The mighty Dracon Empire was facing something unprecedented. Humans who asked questions. "Ready for round 2?" Captain Rivera asked as they prepared to return to the mothership. Elena nodded. "Let's show them what human ingenuity really means." High Commander Vorax was visibly agitated when the human delegation returned. His blue skin showed darker patches, the Dracon equivalent of flushing with anger. "You have ignored our deadline," Vorax stated flatly. "This is unprecedented." "We needed more time to consider your generous offer," Captain Rivera replied with deliberate politeness. "There is no negotiation," Vorax insisted. "You will surrender or face destruction. Perhaps a small demonstration of your power would help convince our leaders," Dr. Wong suggested innocently. Vorax's 4 eyes blinked rapidly in sequence. "Very well. Observe." On the large screen, they watched as a Dracon ship positioned itself over the Pacific Ocean, far from inhabited areas. A beam of light shot downward, followed by a massive explosion. Water rose in a tremendous column, creating an impressive display. Dr. Wong checked readings on a small device he had brought. He nodded slightly to the others. Just as they suspected, conventional explosives enhanced with light effects, not the reality warping power they claimed. "Impressive," David commented, feigning concern. "But our scientists have questions about the physics involved." "Your primitive science cannot comprehend our technology," Vorax replied dismissively. Elena leaned forward. "Then perhaps you could explain how your quantum resonance avoids the Heisenberg compensation paradox." This was complete nonsense, a made-up term, but Vorax didn't know that. He hesitated, clearly uncertain how to respond. "That is classified information," he finally managed. Back on Earth, Operation Mirage advanced to its second phase. While the delegation kept Dracon leaders distracted with increasingly technical questions, David's cyber team infiltrated more Dracon systems. "They're remarkably vulnerable to basic incursions," David reported. "Their security architecture assumes no species would dare attempt to breach their systems." They discovered that the Dracon Empire had never encountered significant resistance. Every previous species had surrendered after the first show of force. The Empire had no actual battle plans for Earth. Their entire military doctrine is based on intimidation, not combat. Captain Rivera concluded during a briefing. And intimidation only works if you believe in it. The next day, when Dracon ships attempted to scan military bases, Dr. Wang's devices sent back false readings showing both primitive and impossibly advanced technology intermixed. When they tried to jam Earth communications, Alina's programs made it appear as if their efforts had failed completely. They're growing increasingly confused, David noted as they monitored Dracon communications. Lower-ranking officers are questioning their superiors' orders. The Dracons demanded yet another meeting. This time, High Commander Vorax brought additional officers with him, perhaps seeking safety in numbers. "Your resistance is pointless," Vorax declared, but his voice lacked conviction. "According to your own records," Alina said casually, "you've conquered precisely 217 worlds, and you didn't actually conquer them. They surrendered without a fight." Vorax's face darkened further. "How could you access our records?" "The same way we accessed your weapon specifications," Dr. Wang said, bluffing confidently. "Your planetary pacification system uses outdated fusion technology with a maximum yield of only 50 megatons." This was a calculated guess, but Vorax's reaction confirmed it instantly. The other Dracon officers exchanged troubled glances. "These humans lie," Vorax shouted. "Prepare the main weapon. We will destroy their largest city as a demonstration." One of his officers stepped forward hesitantly. "High Commander, our systems are reporting malfunctions. The targeting array cannot lock properly." This was Dr. Wang's countermeasure at work, jamming their systems with contradictory signals. "Fix it immediately," Vorax ordered. "We're trying, Commander, but human communications are somehow interfering with our protocols." Alina glanced at her colleagues. The Dracons were breaking their carefully scripted procedures. For the first time, they faced a species that wasn't following the expected pattern of terrified submission. As they departed the mothership, Alina noticed something remarkable. Some of the Dracon officers were watching Vorax with unmistakable doubt in their four eyes. Operation Mirage was working. A week had passed since the ships first appeared. What had begun as Earth's darkest hour was transforming into something unexpected. Vorax's daily threats became increasingly desperate and less coherent. Dracon ships changed positions frequently, as if unsure of their strategy. Some smaller vessels disappeared entirely, retreating to positions behind the moon. "They're arguing among themselves," David reported, monitoring their communications. "Vorax is being questioned by his superiors. They want to know why Earth hasn't surrendered like everyone else." Then came the breakthrough. In a secure underground facility, Alina met with an unexpected visitor, a Dracon scientist who had secretly contacted Earth. "My name is Nexer," the alien said nervously, his four eyes blinking out of sync. "What I tell you must remain confidential. The Empire is not what it appears to be." Over the next 2 hours, Nexer revealed the truth. The Dracon Empire had begun centuries ago as a small coalition of trading planets. They developed impressive but limited technology. Then they discovered something. Most intelligent species, upon first contact with aliens, experienced a period of shock and awe that made them vulnerable to intimidation. "We never needed to develop planet-destroying weapons," Nexer explained. "The mere threat was enough. We conquered our first worlds with nothing but holographic projections and theatrical explosions. Each new world's technology and resources were added to our own, making the next conquest more convincing." "You've been bluffing your way across the galaxy," Alina realized. Nexer's body language suggested shame. "For generations. But your species, you asked questions no one else dared to ask. You examined our technology instead of merely fearing it. You analyzed our language instead of just obeying it. You're the first to see through our deception. Why are you telling us this?" Captain Rivera demanded. Because our leadership is considering the dangerous escalation. They would rather risk destroying themselves than admit the truth. Some of us believe it's time for the deception to end. Armed with Nexer's confirmation and detailed technical information, Earth's leaders developed the final phase of Operation Mirage. They called it the Unveiling. Using the communication vulnerabilities Elena had identified, Earth broadcast a simple message to every Dracon ship simultaneously. People of the Dracon Empire, we know the truth. Your conquest by intimidation ends today. Withdraw your ships peacefully, or we will reveal your deception to every world you've conquered. To prove they weren't bluffing, they included technical specifications of actual Dracon weapons capability, far less impressive than claimed, and excerpts from the Empire's own historical records detailing their strategy of conquest through fear. For 24 hours, nothing happened. Then, without warning or announcement, the Dracon ships began to ascend. One by one, they rose beyond the atmosphere and disappeared. All except one. A smaller diplomatic vessel descended to the United Nations headquarters in New York. From it emerged not High Commander Vorax, but a delegation of Dracon officials in civilian attire. We come to negotiate a true relationship between our peoples, their new representative announced. One based on mutual respect rather than fear. In the months that followed, the truth spread throughout the galaxy. World after world realized they had surrendered to an elaborate hoax. The Dracon Empire collapsed virtually overnight, fragmenting into individual planets seeking new alliances. Earth emerged as an unexpected power, not because of superior weapons or technology, but because humans had done what no other species had. They questioned, analyzed, and refused to be intimidated by the unknown. It's ironic, Elena remarked to her colleagues as they watched the final Dracon diplomatic ship depart. Their greatest weapon was fear itself. And humanity's greatest weapon? Captain Rivera asked. Elena smiled. Curiosity. The stars suddenly seemed less threatening and more inviting. Humanity had passed its first galactic test, not through superior firepower, but through the uniquely human traits of skepticism, ingenuity, and the simple courage to ask questions. The galaxy would never be the same again.